There are two themes which underlie the programming for this concert. The first of them is obvious, the French connection. Saint-Saens was an important French composer of the 19th, early 20th century. Henri Rabaud was a less important but significant composer and administrator and conductor of the same period. The other theme, however, is Boston connection. Chadwick was a major composer and a major force in the musical life of Boston from the latter 19th century till his death in the early 1930s. And Rabaud was the music director of the Boston Symphony for one season between Karl Muck and the advent of Pierre Monteux in 1920. The Rabaud piece which opens our program is a tone poem which he wrote age 26. It's a surprisingly mature work manipulating a post-Wagnerian language in a very elegant fashion. Its program is taken from the Faust poem of Nicholas Lenau, a German poet who wrote alternative versions of many important and famous themes. So this is not a Faust poem by Goethe or of Marlowe, but Lenau's own reinterpretation of the same legend. In this, Faust, a philosopher, distraught, rides on horseback into the wilderness, comes to a clearing, stops, dismounts, and from a distance a religious procession approaches, passes him by, and goes on. And he, struck again by loneliness, muses and weeps. So the music has this desolate quality at the beginning, then a wonderful pictorial representation of a religious procession with plain chant and contrapuntal elaborations, and then a very passionate orchestral outcry at the end. To my mind, as a point of reference, it sounds like a hybrid between Strauss's Totenverklärung and the Prelude to Tristan. Saint-Saens was a major figure for many, many years. Born in 1835, he died as late as 1921. He wrote an enormous body of music in all genres. There are 10 concertos in all, plus maybe the better part of a dozen shorter pieces for various instruments and orchestra. The first cello concerto is one of the hits from this repertoire, I think. And Stephen Honigberg, who plays it, is one of our favorite soloists. He's been appearing with the orchestra since I became its conductor in 1988. And he has played it, I'm sure, many, many times. It was a favorite of his teacher, Leonard Rose. Stephen is a member of the National Symphony's phenomenal cello section. He is very proud of the fact that he auditioned for his position with none other than Rostropovich, who was then the music director of the orchestra, and of course was the greatest cellist during the latter part of the 20th century. The Saint-Saens concerto is very compact. It's a one-movement piece which has contrasting sections, so it fulfills all the usual obligatory roles of fast movement, slow movement, cadenza, finale. But it does in a very compact way with thematic interlinks between the various sections. A favorite piece of mine to conduct. It also has wonderfully rich orchestration in the typical French manner, with a lot of solo wind parts competing with and concertizing with and against the soloist. The Chadwick Symphony is a bit of a rarity. Among other things, it proves that there was a very vibrant and very vital American orchestral tradition long before the emergence of people like Copland, Walter Piston, Gershwin, and others in the 1920s. Chadwick, born in Lowell, Mass., went to Germany to study, and so this is a work which, in a certain sense, approximates a late Romantic German symphony, stylistically somewhere indebted certainly to Brahms, to Dvorak, and harmonically to Wagner. There are no surprises formally. What's surprising is the thematic material, which is indisputably American and folkloristic. And if it reminds you of Dvorak's New World Symphony, your chronology is backward, because this piece emerged in 1883 to 1886. Dvorak's New World Symphony is almost a decade later. And in fact, it fulfills, in advance, so to speak, the idea which Dvorak had for a truly American national style, one which drew upon Native American musical traditions. And I think one hears an influence of American popular song of the 80s, spirituals, folk music, folk dance. It's a very, very exciting piece and really worth reviving. The performance will be enhanced, I think, by the fact that we'll have a pre-concert talk by Stephen Ledbetter, the preeminent Chadwick scholar, a musicologist friend from way back, whose wife is a member of the orchestra. So I welcome you to hear a surprise, a piece which will sound familiar even though you haven't heard it before in the Chadwick, and probably a piece you have heard before in Saint-Saens, and a rarity, a wonderful discovery in the Rabaud.